Before we get started, a quick warning that in part of today's episode, we talk about suicidal ideation. If you or someone you know may be considering suicide, contact the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by dialing 988 or the crisis text line by texting HOME to 741-741. Again, that's dialing 988 or texting HOME to 741-741. We'll also put that info in our show notes. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Proxy. It's Yowei. So when I describe my work to people, I sometimes call myself an emotional investigative journalist. What the hell is that? Well, I like searching for answers to questions and problems that start from an emotional place. That's what this show's about. We're going to meet people who have questions like how to approach sex after surviving prostate cancer, how to be an introvert in an extroverted world. And then I'm going to connect these guests for a conversation with experts and people who know a lot about these experiences. And I'm kicking things off with a 3-part series about a mystery with really personal stakes. Why is getting laid off so emotionally devastating for some people, like it was for me? When NPR laid me off last year, I knew it wasn't because I did a bad job. Also, I didn't have kids. I had savings. I had a partner. And as experts told me, I had a good layoff. Unlike most workers who get laid off, I got advanced warning. I got severance. So why did I still feel like I got hit by a truck? If you're just tuning in, this is the second episode in the series. Go back and listen to part 1, where you can hear all the sad, ridiculous details of my layoff story. You'll also hear how I found Miles and Elliot, the couple that this episode is all about. It's a horror story that millions of Americans experience every year. By the way, Miles and Elliot aren't their real names. All names have been changed, and certain personal details and information about jobs and the name of the company have been intentionally omitted. Let's begin. This is part 2 of the Layoff Trilogy, Danger Day. So there's this house. It's a cute light blue house with tan shutters, little garden in the back, fire pit for hosting friends. There isn't a white picket fence, but there is a spotless wooden fence that has to be moved by hand every time the electric car backs out. Inside the house, there's a pile of jute floor pillows next to velvet orange chairs, an anniversary photo book on a handmade coffee table, and a fancy automated cat feeder that plays a recording of the names of 3 very cute cats.
Dickens, Homer, Allende.
It's a picture of the modern American dream and the young couple who lives there. They never thought they'd get this.
Look, we're not the Caitlyn Jenners of the trans world. We don't have real status and real money. But as far as being able to attain something resembling hey, this is comfortable middle class dual income, no kids, transdom, hey, that's honestly, that's so good.
That's Miles.
I mean, isn't that the dream?
And that's Elliot. And they are living the dream. They just got married, bought a house. They do still feel a bit like outsiders. They're trans in the year 2024. They're both people of color. And Elliot is an immigrant who came from nothing. After years of low-paying jobs and then toiling in school for a master's degree, Elliot finally landed his first good-paying white-collar job. In fact, Elliot and Miles both work at the same company. It's a really big company, but they feel supported, seen. When Miles and Elliot got married, their coworkers threw them this really sweet wedding shower with gold streamers and a West Elm gift certificate.
I was actually quite moved, very surprised. I just never had anybody put in that much effort.
This isn't like a family, but it's kind of a family. It's like our work family.
But hands down, what Elliot and Miles love most about their jobs is getting to work together. In the mornings, they'd commute in their electric car, listening to audiobooks together, say hi, babe, on the work chat, eat lunch together.
I felt a little bit almost Victorian, I might reach across the table and we might hold hands just for a few seconds and then pull our hands back and look around oh, How scandalous our hands doth touch.
At the beginning, it was very hard for me to, I have to be very serious. We're at work, and please don't slap his butt. Things like that. So I had to always be very mindful of my moves and what I was doing because so automatic. And
Slap on the ass.
yeah, look, HR would not like that.
In the evenings, they'd eat dinner on the West Elm dining table they bought with the gift certificate, and maybe pop a horror movie on their big screen TV and cuddle on the couch. Elliot's the horror movie buff.
I think it's the thrill and not knowing what's gonna happen next. Is the actor gonna die or not? I like a good spook.
One morning last June, Elliot's at the office at his desk. He's been there for a few years, so his cubicle has become a little home away from home. He's got photos of Miles, his cats, and one of the few photos he has of his mom that he really treasures. On this morning, Elliot has a fresh, hot cup of coffee. He's about to put the final touches on a video project when he gets an invite to a meeting.
I asked my coworkers across from my desk, I say, hey, did you guys get this invite for this meeting in person? Is this the business meeting that we have? And they were like, no, we didn't get that invite. I say, okay, let me go check out. It is what it is.
Elliot grabs his notebook and pen. He leaves his coffee, though. He'll be right back. He takes the stairs to the first floor and walks into the conference room near the front doors and security desk.
And then I saw the boss of my boss's boss and the person from HR sitting in there. And I have a pin in my stomach.
His first thought is that somebody complained about him using the men's restroom.
So I sit down, and I was expecting to speak about that. And I look at the head of the department and say, unfortunately, we had to let you go. And I was just like, wait, what? I don't understand. I had never had any complaints. I never heard anything from my manager. My feedback has always been very positive. I had worked above and beyond of what you guys asked for. And they say, oh, it has nothing to do with your performance. We're just doing some budget cuts and you were on the list. And then the HR person say, yeah, unfortunately, we had to let you go. And she smiled when she said it. She smiled, like a very creepy, dead in the eyes smile. Honestly, I felt like I was being swallowed by a sinking hole. The chair was going through the floor, and I was just so scared that I was going to have a panic attack.
Elliot takes a deep breath, tells himself he's all right. He's all right. Keep it together.
So I say, okay, well, I need to go back to my desk. I need to finish this video. I want to turn it in. And they say, no, you're not now in the building anymore. And I was like, wait, what? But my stuff is there. Oh, yeah, somebody's packing your stuff right now. You don't have to worry about it. I feel like I had committed a crime and I stole something.
After what feels like an eternity, the HR rep comes back with a cardboard box with Elliot's stuff.
I look at the box and I saw my pictures were wet because whoever packed it dumped the cup of coffee that I was drinking and dumped all my stuff. A few pictures were completely destroyed. And my mom picture was gone. And that was the only picture I had that looked professional like that. There's no copies of that picture anywhere. So it's not like I can just go and print another one. That was a property that it has no value and it's irreplaceable.
The HR rep tells Elliot he has 10 minutes to leave the building, or they'll call security. Elliot wants to scream, but doesn't want to make a scene. He just dries off his things with a paper towel and packs everything into his backpack.
I just felt like I got banished. I just wanted to say goodbye. And I had to hold my tears and just try to be just strong. And I just packed my stuff and walk out the door.
Miles was working from the house that day.
When he got home, he came in the door and I just pulled him into a big hug. I held him and I told him things like, it's going to be okay. We're not going to lose the house. I can support us.
Miles puts Elliot to bed, but his own workday isn't over. He heads back to his desk and logs onto the work chat. Immediately, he notices something's different. Elliot's profile picture is already gone.
His name was there, but his face had been removed. His picture was just like a gray outline of like a person. It kind of made me upset because it is sort of like a digital death icon of sorts. Also, like, it's gray. It's the color of like tombstones and stuff.
The next week, Miles drives to the office alone for the first time since his husband got laid off.
It felt like I was walking through someplace new and less welcoming.
Elliot's cubicle is empty now. Friends at work stop Miles in the hallway to say they're sorry, to ask if Miles can say goodbye to Elliot for them.
I felt a little bit like a medium in some ways, like communicating between the world of the laid off and the world of the still employed.
Wow.
And Elliot was still here in my house, present and alive and well, and to me still the same person, but to the majority of the people that I spoke to about him, he was essentially dead.
On top of all the surreal feelings Miles is having, it's June, so it's Pride Month. And Miles had volunteered to help out at an ice cream social. He doesn't want to be there, but he already signed up. So there he is in the cafeteria, handing out ice cream sandwiches. There's a single file line. And then Miles sees her, a little ways back in the line. The HR rep who laid off Elliot, who stood there while he dried spilled coffee off his things.
What did you think to yourself when you saw her?
That bitch. I would never say that, but I thought it.
Finally, the HR rep is standing in front of him. Her hand is stretched out for a sandwich, and she's got that blank smile on her face.
She said, "Oh, Miles, good to see you." And I don't know, I really wanted to be like, you think I fucking believe that shit? Like, no. But I live in the real world where there are real consequences, and I can't just be a jerk, even if I kind of wish I could be. And so I was just like, yeah, good to see you too.
He hands her the ice cream sandwich. Inside the light blue house with the tan shutters and spotless wooden fence, there's a new presence, the specter of layoffs, which haunts every corner of the house. After the layoff, Miles jumps into action. He sits at the West Elm dining table, tallies up their bills, reworks the finances on his budget app. No more eating out. Cancel the new fridge. The honeymoon to the Philippines will have to wait. And Elliot, he's having trouble adjusting to being unemployed. There are mornings he wakes up and tries to check his work email, searching the whole house for his work phone, only to remember he doesn't have a work phone. The same thing happened to me when I was laid off. I called it phantom work limb syndrome.
I felt insane. I felt like I was just going crazy.
The days when Miles goes into the office are hardest. Elliot tries to avoid the bedroom that doubles as the home office, where they used to work side by side.
Coming up here was, oh my God, this is so quiet and so weird. It's a little eerie.
But over the next few weeks, Elliot settles into a routine. He wakes up early to make breakfast for Miles, an excuse to get out of bed.
I don't want to deal with you. Okay.
He keeps Real Housewives on in the background and throws himself into housework. His strategy to stay out of bed. He makes lunch for Miles. He searches for jobs online. He organizes the basement, screaming every time he kills a spider. He makes dinner for Miles.
Who gonna check me, boo?
And slowly, Elliot starts to feel like he's turning a corner. And then one day, Miles is at the office. He's working on his laptop in a meeting room with glass walls when his friend Susan walks in.
She asked, of course, oh my gosh, how is Elliot? How are things going? And kind of, caught up with me. And then she said that she was now in the position as a new manager, having to lay off someone from her team, my old team. And she was feeling really bad about it.
Susan told Miles who that someone was.
But then it felt awful because the the colleague that she was going to have to lay off, he walked right past the room.
No. What did you two do?
Well, he saw we were in there and he smiled and he waved because he knows both of us. I actually had trained him when he first started back when I was on my old team. And so we saw him and he smiled and waved and walked on. And I did have that very disconcerting feeling like I had just waved at like a zombie or a corpse or something that doesn't yet know that it's dead. And then I turned to her and I saw the smile just fall right off her face. And she kind of turned to me and she said, "I feel terrible."
Susan had mentioned a specific date, the third Thursday of the next month, or Danger Day, as Miles now called it.
My first thought was, oh shit, because I knew that layoffs happen in like waves. On one day, they'll lay off hundreds of people, which means that if I know for certain more layoffs are coming next month for even one person in a different building, there's still a very strong possibility they are coming to my team, to my building. Oh shit, what if it's me? What if I'm next?
What if he's the zombie that doesn't know he's dead yet? After the break, the countdown to Danger Day begins.
Hi there, it's Zakiya, the host of Hang Up, a reality dating show with no rings attached. Think of Hang Up like a cross between The Bachelor and Love is Blind, but queer, with a focus on dating and connection rather than marriage. On Hang Up, you don't just get to eavesdrop on dates. There's also a series of eliminations. And in the end, there's a twist. The new season is out now, so stay on the line.
After the conversation with his coworker Susan, Miles becomes obsessed with Danger Day. He marks it on his calendar. He becomes fixated on whether he's safe or not. And as the days pass, he begins looking for clues. He scrolls through the spreadsheet of upcoming projects. It's a little dry. Maybe that's not good. He did just have his mid-year review and got top marks, so maybe he's above the fray. He starts scrutinizing every interaction with his boss. She's always been friendly, but lately, has she been a bit distant? One day, Miles straight up asks his boss, "Are the layoffs coming for me?"
She just kind of shook her head and said, "No, I don't know of any more layoffs that are coming. You know, I think you're just fine."
He doesn't know if he can trust her.
Is she the world's best liar? Is she just pretending? Or does she really not know?
Did you feel like a conspiracy theorist?
Oh, absolutely. I just kept talking about it over and over and over. I kept talking about the signs and talking over the signs. And what do you think? Do you see the same thing? I felt bad for Elliot. I felt bad for my husband because I felt like I was potentially re-traumatizing him because I would not shut up about it.
Remember, Elliot just got laid off a few weeks ago.
He did have to set some boundaries with me at different points and say, I can't keep talking about this. This is really hard for me to keep feeling like I'm reliving my own layoff as you talk about whether or not you're going to be laid off.
As Danger Day draws near, Elliot is doing his best to support Miles, taking care of all the chores, patiently listening to his husband's conspiracy theories. But Elliot is also freaking out.
Okay, if we cannot do the mortgage payment, we have to go to foreclosure. We have to lose the house. Where are we going to go? What are we going to do? How are we going to feed ourselves? How are we going to take care of the cats? How are we going to pay for everything?
Finally, it's Wednesday, the eve of Danger Day. I call Miles and Elliot to check in.
Hi. Hello.
Miles had called in sick that morning. He was in his mania phase of layoff anxiety. He compared his condition to a sex toy rattling on the floor.
Full on, like, vibrator on a tile floor kind of mode, just...
But vibrator humor aside, they told me things were tense in the house. That morning, Elliot was working in the garden. It's part of his daily ritual, a way to calm down. And Miles came out and started micromanaging, telling Elliot the most efficient way to pull the weeds. He made Elliot cry.
You can be honest.
babe. I know I have not been pleasant to be around. I'm sorry.
My poor baby.
What do you think is going to happen tomorrow?
I truly don't know.
There were indications it wasn't going to be good.
Then my boss moved our one-on-one for tomorrow. Usually we'd have our one-on-one on like Thursday afternoons. And then she moved it to Thursday morning. And I was like, oh no. Because every time that I've known about a layoff, they always happen in the morning. And then she moved the room. She moved the room from our usual room for our one-on-ones, which is like near the back door. She moved it to a room by the front door, near like the security desk. And I was like, okay, cool. So I now have a meeting with my boss during the danger time on the danger day. And I truly, even talking it through right now, I don't know if I sound like I have deduced things in a logical fashion or if I just sound completely unhinged.
You should wear your lemon shirt.
What's the lemon shirt?
Oh, I have this shirt that has a bunch of lemons on it, and it's a very summery, bright, happy shirt. And for some reason, whenever I have worn it, like it always becomes weirdly noticeable and popular with my coworkers. You know, maybe I will. Maybe I will wear the lemon shirt.
Good luck tomorrow. I'm going to be thinking of you.
Thank you.
What happens on Danger Day after the break? Popping in real quick, it's Yowei. At some point, we'll have ads here, fingers crossed. But for now, I'm going to take this moment to tell you that I have a Patreon where you can get bonus episodes, the newsletter, and other goodies. Go to patreon.com/proxypodcast. Again, that's patreon.com/proxypodcast. Okay, back to the show. The next morning, it was Danger Day. I kept looking at my phone. I knew what time his one-on-one with his boss was. But when I didn't hear from Miles, I started to get worried. That afternoon, I called him.
Hey.
Hey there.
Whew. Tell me what happened.
Okay. So I went in and I actually packed up most of the things on my desk into a bag that I brought because
Right.
I didn't want people touching my stuff. And it was like, look, all I have to do is just grab the bag. And then my grand boss or my big boss, she came by my desk while I was working and asked if I had a minute. And I was like, oh, of course. And immediately I'm like, alarm bells are going off in my head.
This happens about 8:45 in the morning. Meanwhile, back at the house with the wooden fence, Elliot is getting ready to go to a doctor's appointment, trying to stay calm and not stare at his phone. But he's a mess. He tries to make coffee, but spills the beans everywhere.
I kept thinking, oh my God, he's going to get laid off. He's going to get laid off.
So she called me into her office and shut the door and she said, have a seat. My first thought was, oh, something very bad has happened. I actually briefly thought like maybe my boss was in a car accident on the way to work. Maybe we were both getting laid off or something, or maybe there was like a whole team or something. I didn't really know. I was sitting down at the table there and I had this sense that I was like, almost like I was sitting at the table with a tiger or some other potentially dangerous animal that I need to be careful of. And at some point I just had my hands on the table in front of me and I clasped them together because if I wasn't holding my own hands, I felt that one of them might start shaking. Then she said,
I was in the living room, making sure that I had my keys and everything. I was almost getting ready out of the door. I sit down for a moment when I got the text. I was screaming, actually. I did scream. I was like, no way. No way. What? You know, this cannot be happening.
Then she said, my boss's position had been eliminated and she had been laid off. And I just felt, I do feel like I dodged a bullet. I feel like I was on a firing line and the squad missed me and hit the person next to me. It feels very surreal.
Okay, I can breathe now for a little bit.
Elliot sits on the couch, catching his breath. They aren't going to lose the house. They can feed the cats. Everything's going to be okay. But then Elliot starts texting with Miles about the boss who got laid off. She'd already been having a hard month. Her mother-in-law had just died.
Oh my God, this person just went through so much and did not deserve this.
And she was such a good manager. She'd worked for the company for over 15 years. She had so much knowledge. She really believed in the company too.
If this person couldn't be safe, how can the rest of us feel safe? How can my husband feel safe?
Elliot keeps texting with Miles, but he has to leave for his doctor's appointment. He grabs an umbrella and starts walking to the bus stop. And then he has this experience he's never had before.
I think the shock of not him getting laid off, but his former boss getting laid off triggered something in me, and I was walking towards the bus stop when I have the PTSD episode.
Walking down the street, Elliot has an intense flashback.
I saw myself in the conference room relieving my layoff.
Wow.
I could see director of the org, and I can see the HR person sitting across me, and I was relieving the whole thing while I was walking to get the bus. Oh my God. Wow. And then when I recovered consciousness, I was close to my body kept walking, so I was close to the bus stop. I was so freaked out because I never experienced that before. It was so real.
Elliot was actually on his way to the doctor to get on antidepressants. He'd been struggling since the layoff.
I had thoughts of killing myself a couple times. I just didn't find purpose. I just felt like I just didn't want to feel like a burden to my husband. And that really scared me. And that's why I seek help immediately and talk to my therapist.
Studies have shown that layoffs are linked to an increased risk of suicide. And the longer someone is unemployed, the higher the risk. For Elliot, he started taking medication, and it's helped.
Had you ever had those thoughts before?
No. Not even with everything that I went through. I always value my life above anything. I'm a survivor. I always pride myself on being a survivor. I have never felt like this before. And honestly, I can write a book about all the stuff that I went through. And it's traumatizing. But this has been the worst.
And seriously, by all objective measures, Elliot has been through way worse. When Elliot was in middle school in Latin America, he and his mom had to pack up their things and flee gang violence in the middle of the night. Elliot's been homeless. He's had terrible bosses, like the cook at the school cafeteria who called him stupid, lazy, and slow. He's filed for bankruptcy. He's been divorced. He survived cervical cancer. But somehow, emotionally, this layoff was the worst.
Why is this one so much worse?
I still don't understand myself. Why is it so hard? The only thing I can think of is I feel betrayed because here I am following all the rules, playing your game by your rules, and I still got punished.
Elliot thought that going to school for 10 years and getting a master's would bring him security.
I was promised that getting an education would really solidify me getting a job and find financial stability. And I followed the rules for the American dream. I got the American dream for 2 years. And it's gone again. What do you mean? I did the right thing. This is what I was promised.
Because we don't accurately describe what our society is like to our kids, to ourselves, to each other, we set ourselves up for this kind of complete crisis spiraling when things go wrong.
This is Ofer Sharone, the UMass Amherst sociologist you heard in part 1 of the series. I'm bringing him back because he has a theory for why people like Elliot and me are emotionally flattened by our layoffs. He thinks one of the reasons has to do with something called the myth of meritocracy. You've heard of this. It's the idea that hard work determines who gets ahead, ignoring factors like luck or privilege.
It comes from early childhood. We are told that your efforts and your hard work are what's shaping, say, in school, your grades. And we are encouraged to believe that our actions determine our outcomes as a way to motivate us. So this becomes very deeply ingrained in our worldview, that we live in a fair meritocratic world, that as long as you do the right things, as long as you get the good grades and go to college, your life will follow a predictable, secure path. You're not going to be thrown out of a job. That is nowhere in the narrative.
But in a country with at-will employment, you can get thrown out of a job for any reason, even if you work hard, do all the right things. And when you're thrown out, Ofer says it can be completely destabilizing because a layoff doesn't compute with your myth of meritocracy operating system.
We think it's helpful to believe it. I actually think it makes us very vulnerable for having the crisis that Elliot is experiencing, because nothing has prepared him for this.
Okay, I'm raising my hand now because I thought I didn't believe in the myth of meritocracy. I know we live in a scary, volatile economy and society. I know that actions don't guarantee outcomes, that there are so many factors holding some people back and propping others up.
Yes, this inner tug of war.
Ofer says he's talked to lots of people like me, people who intellectually know the myth of meritocracy is a myth, but deep down still buy into it.
It's the inner Republican. I don't know what to think of it.
Oh my God, the inner Republican.
This happens, I think, largely unconsciously. We want to hold on to this myth because it keeps us feeling safe about ourselves. It gives you a sense of control. But the mythological story creates fake safety.
Mm-hmm.
As long as we're not directly hit, then we can pretend like we're safe. But as soon as we lose our job, the myth is popped.
So once the myth is popped, how do we motivate ourselves to get up and try again? If we no longer believe that our hard work will protect us from getting laid off, why would we ever work hard again? Asking for a friend. Can I ask, when I started reporting on layoffs and reading about the depressing statistics and research about all the bad things that can happen when you're laid off and unemployed, I myself got spooked. How do you tell people about the scary structural things without them losing hope?
In the same studies that show there's discrimination against someone who's unemployed, we still see people are getting interviews. They just get half as many.
And actually, Ofer has found that learning about the scary structural things can be more motivating in the long run. He's done research on how doing away with the myth of meritocracy can help unemployed people keep up the fight to stay in the job search. Okay, so usually when you're unemployed, the career counseling you get is aimed at what you can do better. How can you network better? How can you interview better? There's no talk about hiring discrimination or unemployment stigma.
The dominant approach to support is like, let's just ignore all these obstacles, tell ourselves we really have control, create this fiction, and that will motivate us to give ourselves the best chance. I don't think that works. I know that doesn't work. I talk to too many people who experience this form of support, and they experience it as stigmatizing, as basically telling them the unemployment is your fault. You're not doing it right. You're not networking right. You're not doing LinkedIn correctly.
Ofer wanted to try support that didn't peddle the myth of meritocracy. In his study, he got a bunch of career counselors to provide free support to unemployed people looking for work in Boston. And he would start off workshops with the opposite of a pep talk. He'd tell them about all the depressing studies and statistics, what they were up against.
I know this sucks, but the only thing worse than hearing this is not hearing it and thinking that the reason you're struggling in the market is just something about you, how you're searching, or something about your skills or qualifications.
And then they give realistic advice on how to navigate these obstacles and make space for people to vent and share their struggles. A no-no in a typical career center.
For the first time, they heard that other people were having exactly the same experiences as them. They would say things like, it made me feel less weird. It helped me realize that it's really not about me. It's that I'm caught up in a situation. And with that comes a strong boost in well-being. And this helps people keep going.
Hey.
Oh my gosh. Hi.
Hey.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a second, hasn't it?
It's been 6 months since I last talked to Miles and Elliot. They're doing okay. They still live with their cats in the cute blue house with the tan shutters and wooden fence. Miles is still working for the company. As far as he can tell, there haven't been more mass layoffs since his jump scare last summer. But he does have a recurring event on his calendar for Danger Day on the third Thursday of the month, just in case. And recently, a friend at the company confirmed his Danger Day theory for him.
So I definitely got to feel like conspiracy theory confirmed.
Yeah. How did it feel to be right?
Oh, it feels great to be right.
As for Elliot, he's doing better with his mental health. Job stuff has been hard, though. After months of applying for jobs in his field and never getting past the first or second interview, he's trying a new career. He's substitute teaching and getting another master's, this time in education. He feels like he's found his calling.
Since I started this job as a teacher, I've had all these companies that I had applied reaching out to me now. Oh, we're reaching out for an interview. Please schedule your interview. Here's the link to schedule your interview. We would love to have you for an interview.
It's like when your ex gets back in touch the moment you're with somebody else.
Yes. Yes. That's exactly what happened.
And Miles and Elliot, they're approaching life differently now, seeing friends and family more, taking their free time really seriously.
I'm choosing things that make me happy and that make me fulfill, and things that do not make me happy, I don't feel any obligation of doing them.
They're finding a new dream because they've woken up from the old one. You say you woke up? What did you wake up from?
I think to the idea that you go to college and you get a career, and then you go to corporate America and you make good money, and you go to work every day, and then you enjoying your weekends playing whatever, golf, and then you die. And I think that is so silly and ridiculous that you could live a zombie life like that and find it that is meaningful and fulfilling. I mean, good to you if you do, but I kind of woke up and I was like, no, what am I doing here that is actually contributing to society, to the planet, to our politics, to a world that we're in? Am I actually making an effort here, and it's actually paying off, and it's actually making me feel fulfilled as a person? And the answer for me personally is no.
Miles, do you feel like you woke up from something?
I think I did wake up from something. And after Elliot's layoff, I started to look and go, am I any less replaceable really at the end of the day? Are my skills so unique that I'm safe? It's that question, like on Danger Day, on that third Thursday, do I really believe that my skills are going to be enough to keep me safe here? And I just kept coming back to the answer no.
There's research that suggests that people who don't expect to lose their jobs are more wrecked when they do. And after going through the horror movie of layoffs, Elliot, Miles, and I all know that none of us are safe, which is a little scary and depressing, but at least we'll be more prepared if it happens again. But that doesn't mean Elliot and Miles don't still have questions about the layoff. It doesn't mean they haven't stopped wondering about the black box of why the layoff went down the way it did.
"Yeah, so we had to let you go. Smile, smile, smile." And I'm like, why are you smiling?
That brings us to next episode, the third and final installment of the Layoff trilogy, where we try out our very first proxy conversation. Now, they can't talk to the actual HR rep who laid Elliot off. But what if I could get Elliot and Miles in a room with another HR rep? Someone who knows why layoffs happen the way they do, who knows why Elliot's HR rep might have smiled when she laid him off. What if Miles and Elliot could ask all the questions that are still burning in their minds?
Do you get training on how to be human in these conversations?
Not at all. They almost tell us not to be humans.
That's next episode on Proxy. Plus, you'll hear me attempt to make an original layoff song because we need more of those. There's hardly any. This episode of Proxy was produced by me, Yowei Shaw, edited by John DeLore, and mixed by Kyle Pulley. I had research and reporting help from Kim Nederveen Pieterse, social media by Theo Cobb, theme music by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder, tile art by Good Tape Studio. Special thanks to Abby Wendell, Beth Patel, Juliana Reyes, Joanna Solotarev, Laura Starcheski, Liana Simstrom, Lucy Shen, Mark Pagan, Mathilde Erfelino, Nicole Kligerman, Sandy Hogue, Thomas Liu, Tom Waring, and Wanyu Zhang. If you liked what you heard, rate and review us on iTunes and spread the word about Proxy. I'm trying to get the word out to Invisibilia listeners. And if you want more Proxy, you can get bonus episodes, our newsletter, and other treats at patreon.com/proxypodcast. This month, you'll get an extended interview with Ofer Sharone, the sociologist you heard earlier. I loved talking to him. I literally talked to him for hours. In this bonus episode, we go way, way deeper into the myth of meritocracy, where it comes from, and he provides a step-by-step guide for letting go of it.
Then you may be able to walk into an interview or a networking setting and simply present your best self without the negative stuff leaking out.
You can get that bonus episode at patreon.com/proxypodcast. And you can find more info about Ofer Sharone's book, The Stigma Trap, in our show notes. See you next episode.